Bread is delicious. It's fluffy, it's comforting, and to be honest, it's one of my all-time favorite foods. And if you're like me and you love bread, but you are also trying to achieve a weight loss or a body recomposition goal, then this is how you could be eating it. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Thrive Market. More on them in a bit. But first things first, there's really big things that you need to watch out for when buying bread, obviously for weight loss goal, but especially for overall health and wellness too. The first might be obvious, but it is so worth stating, and it's white bread. Other than just straight up adding a lot of sugar to bread in general, this is one of the worst options that you could possibly go with. It's very, very high glycemic load, which means it causes a very big spike in our blood sugar levels and then a subsequent crash. When we have that blood sugar crash, it causes even more sugar cravings. It also is not great for our metabolic flexibility, which means that it doesn't make us very good at burning fat as fuel. And studies have found that white bread causes you to eat more at your next meal compared to other types of breads. The reason why it's so bad is because it has been so stripped. On its own, it would be extremely nutrient poor, which is why it's often going to be fortified with additional vitamins added in. But these are typically not going to be in a great bioavailable form, and it could be linked to issues like colon cancer as well as heart disease. Although, of course, there is always going to be a healthy user bias with this, but it is an important consideration. Either way, it is nutrient poor, it's not great for blood sugar levels, and it's not going to be great for a weight loss or a wellness goal. Second thing to look out for is a very, very, very long list of ingredients. Ultimately, all bread really is water and flour, maybe some salt. And when you start to see a very long list of ingredients on bread, that should stop you in your tracks. That is a big sign that it has gone through a lot of that stripping of its nutrients and then having to add them back in with that less bioavailable form. Now, a little caveat is that there are some healthier breads, as we'll talk about in a second, that might have a little bit of a longer list, but that is an exception that we'll get into in a bit. Okay, the third thing to watch out for that might be surprising are most low-carb breads. Just like with those highly processed breads, most low-carb breads are also going to be very, very processed and very, very nutrient poor. And that's because it relies on various nutrient poor fibers as well as gluten as some of the main ingredients. So sure, it might be better for blood sugar levels, but overall it is very nutrient poor and not one of the better options, especially when considering you could have much better bread options that do provide some nutrient value. The fourth thing to watch out for are almond or cauliflower breads. Which again might be surprising. It's not that the almond or the cauliflower are inherently bad. In fact, you can make really great high quality options with almond or cauliflower. But the issue is that often companies will combine cassava or tapioca flour with the almond or the cauliflower flour, which will make it taste that starchiness that you're used to with breads, but also eliminates a lot of those benefits of stable blood sugar levels that you would get from the cauliflower or almond. So they can be high glycemic load still. And you'll often see this with like the cauliflower pizzas or sometimes the cauliflower breads or like almond flour breads. These are typically going to be gluten-free, so if you don't have a weight loss goal in mind, then they're not necessarily a bad option, but they still will be more higher glycemic load and therefore not a great option on a weight loss goal. But if you do love bread, there are ones that you can eat and still work towards your weight loss goal. In fact, there are 5 things you can consider when choosing bread, but before I do, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Thrive Market. Biggest fun fact, you can find a lot of these healthier breads through Thrive Market. Thrive Market is an awesome online membership-based grocery store, and they're on a mission to make healthy living as easy and accessible and affordable as possible. Plus, they're delivered directly to your door, which for myself as a new mom is really helpful for me in my extremely busy schedule. And you can save on every order on high-quality brands like Ezekiel or Base Culture or Primal Kitchens on Thrive's website or on its app. And if you have to find the price lower someplace else, Thrive Market will match the price, always guaranteeing you the lowest price. And orders over $49 have free shipping. My favorite thing about Thrive Market has always been this filters function they have where you can discover different brands that fit your dietary preferences or needs. So like if you're plant-based or you're keto or you're gluten-free or you're opting for grass-fed, then you can mark these off to make sure that what you choose fits your needs. And you have access to foods that you might not be able to find at your local grocery store, all while saving money in the process. And many of these items, like Ezekiel bread and Base Culture that I'm sharing today, can be found on Thrive Market to make getting bread that actually fits your goals super easy. And right now you can join Thrive Market today to get 30% off your first order plus a free gift valued up to $60. So make sure you head over to thrivemarket.com/autumnbates for 30% off your first order. I'll also have it linked down in the description below so you don't miss out on the discount. Okay, the first thing to look out for when choosing bread that fits your goals is that it is naturally fermented. You might know this as like sourdough bread, which really is just the traditional way of making bread. When something is naturally fermented, you're not using those little like yeast packets that you find at the grocery store. Rather, you're actually forming the yeast yourself, and it's going through a much slower fermentation process. So when the bread is fermented, it actually helps to break down more the gluten and anti-nutrients and make the nutrients more bioavailable for your body to use. Plus, with the natural fermentation, it does tend to lower the glycemic load of the bread as well. Although you still do want to make sure that you're using a whole grain option, because that regular white bread flour is going to be very nutrient poor. You can either have this as like a fun project to do at home on your own, or of course there are some artisanal bakeries that will have this naturally fermented sourdough as well. Now, this would not be a good option for people who are very carb sensitive, but if you're really active on your weight loss journey, especially if you're lifting weights, and if you find that you are not carb sensitive and on the occasion you want like a slice of bread to go along with eggs, for example, then this would be a much better option than just regular grocery store bread. Okay, the second type of bread that you can use is sprouted. So when you sprout grains and seeds and legumes, it really helps to break down those anti-nutrients so that you can actually gain access to the nutrients that are within those foods. So obviously it does make it more nutrient dense when you've gone through sprouting. Now, Ezekiel bread will tend to have like a kind of a long ingredients list, but it is because it has multiple different forms of sprouted grains and legumes and seeds. So that's the exception to the rule that I mentioned earlier. But some other huge perks of buying sprouted bread is that it also tends to be better for most people's GI tract because it doesn't have those anti-nutrients. So it can usually cause less or no gut distress. That sprouting process, just like fermentation, essentially acts as pre-digestion for your body so that your body doesn't have to do all of that work. Sometimes these sprouted breads are also going to be naturally fermented too, which would be like a double win. But even just going through that first step of sprouting really helps make the bread a much better option for your goals. If you really wanted to explore this, you could obviously do this yourself, like sprout your own grains and legumes and then like naturally ferment them and grind them and then make your own bread. But honestly, like I don't know who really has the time for that. I wouldn't have the time for that, but there are breads that you can find in most places. One common one is Ezekiel bread, which I will say I recently had my mind change on that. I used to not be a fan, but after looking further into it, it's actually not a bad option because it is sprouted, but it also does provide a variety of different legumes, grains, and seeds, which means it's going to be a higher quality protein than just having like wheat alone. Combining these different plant-based sources of protein helps to raise the overall DIAS score, meaning that it's going to be a much more absorbable protein for the body to use. Plus, Ezekiel bread does tend to be low glycemic load, again, making it a better option. Now, I wouldn't rely on this as a protein source, but especially if you are like vegan or vegetarian and have a hard time fitting protein into your diet, this could at least provide a little bit of a bump. Again, I wouldn't rely on it though, because it's still going to have those starchier carbohydrates. Okay, the third thing you can look out for is paleo bread. Now, not all are great, so you do want to watch out for this because technically speaking, some of those cassava flour based breads could be paleo, but they are still high glycemic load and very processed. But some are actually really a great option, especially if you are carb sensitive and can't have something like naturally fermented sourdough or the Ezekiel bread. So those that are made with like nuts and seeds and almond butter are a much better option. They're low glycemic load, it has high quality fat to help keep you satiated. The brand that I've used in the past that I actually found on Thrive Market is called Base Culture, and it's fantastic, especially for homemade French toast, really good. Now, one thing to note specifically about the brand Base Culture is that they do offer that more like shelf stable option. You don't want that one. You wanna make sure you use the one that has to be frozen. That's the one that actually uses those better whole food ingredients. Now, one caveat with the paleo bread is that it could cause some gut distress for some people, especially if you're sensitive to like nuts and seeds. So I wouldn't go overboard with it. It is still a form of nuts and seeds, so you don't want a ton of it, but like 1 to 2 slices should be perfectly fine. Okay, the fourth thing to look out for is cauliflower bread. But again, watch out for that cassava or tapioca flour that you often find in the ingredients. Typically for the higher quality cauliflower bread, it's going to be more of like a flatbread or as a pizza. So you can use it to make like a wrap or as a pizza base. The brand I really like is called Outer Isle. And the reason why this one is so much better than some of the others is because of the ingredients. It just uses cauliflower and Parmesan and eggs. So it's very, very nutrient dense. In fact, because of the eggs and Parmesan, you get some high quality protein. I think it's 10 grams of protein from complete high quality sources. It's also very low carb. It's very low glycemic load. So it's great from a weight loss perspective. And with the Parmesan and eggs, you get the added nutrient benefit of vitamin K2 and choline, both which are very, very important and difficult to get from other foods. This is another one that needs to be kept in the fridge or in the freezer. Okay, the last thing to consider is actually more of a tip, and it's to not consider bread really the main feature of a meal. Even though these are great options, we really need to rethink how it is that we're approaching using bread. Just like with pasta, a lot of people are used to having bread be like the main feature. If you think of like, let's say a Subway sandwich, you don't really get much of the filling. It's a lot of bread. And having that much bread and having it be really that focus of the meal is going to significantly bring up that starch content and lower the amount of overall protein in the meal, which is not conducive for a weight loss or a wellness goal. And even if you are using bread and let's say like you wanted to make a sandwich, don't make the mistake of having a low protein option like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich or just using like a couple slices of deli meat. Just like what I always talk about on my channel, the protein needs to be the main focus. It's easy to eat less protein when you are adding in bread because that's how traditionally people use it. So it's still very, very important that you're using between 4 to 6 ounces of some type of protein, even if you are going to have it in a sandwich form, which might be a lot thicker of a sandwich than what you're used to. Now, because a lot of people on their weight loss journey are more carb sensitive, you probably don't want to be having bread every single day. So it's a good idea to keep those higher quality breads in the freezer and just use them sparingly. Now, most of the high quality breads that I mentioned in today's video can actually be found on Thrive Market and delivered directly to your door. So if you want to get that 30% off discount plus a free gift valued up to $60, make sure you head over to thrivemarket.com/autumnbase. I'll also have the link down description below so you don't miss out. Now, another food that is actually massively useful for achieving a weight loss and body recomposition goal is cottage cheese. And I have a video that shares a ton of different ways on how you can use cottage cheese along your weight loss and wellness journey. You can find that right here. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.